We live in a very externally motivated culture. Many of us, if not most of us, define ourselves by what we weigh, what we look like, what our job title is, what kind of house we live in.
Stop it.
I know.
Now.
I know. And I knew you were going to say that. But
we knew you knew.
I know. And I used to be very, very caught up in that, but I've done a lot of introspection and I've done a lot of reading and I've read your books, and I know that you can't find worth outside of yourself. It has to be found within.
Well, you can, but it's frivolous and fickle.
Right.
In other words, someone can appreciate you, and you can catch them in the act of appreciating you.
Yes.
And oh boy, does it feel good. Because when someone's appreciating you, they're tuned into source. And when they're holding you as their object of attention, it just feels good to you because it influences you into alignment also. That's really the best description that we could find about what upliftment is. Upliftment is being connected to source and holding someone as your object of attention and just flooding that all over them. So it feels good, and we're not encouraging you to not like it. We're just saying don't be dependent upon their connection for your connection, because they're fickle.
Right, exactly.
Today they might love you, tomorrow they might have something else they're worried about, and when the person who loved you on one day is looking at you on another day and the lights are out because they're worried about something else, you tend to take it personally, like there's something that you should be doing differently now. And we say, yeah, like minding your own business. And we mean that in the strongest sense. We want you to mind your business about what they think about you.
Right. Yes.
Because what they think about you is about their points of vibrational relativity 100 to 1 over what you're doing.
Right. I know it's not smart to put all of your self-worth into what other people think of you, because they have their own stuff that they bring to everything. My question really is, if I launch a rocket of desire that maybe has to do with material things, like I'd like new hardwood floors, or I'd like a nicer car, or I wish my landscaping looked nicer. Part of me really wants that and, sends that rocket of desire, but then I have that little voice inside of me saying, well, that's just all about your ego and how you want to appear to other people. So I know I'm cutting myself off from closing that gap.
But think about this, because these are different thoughts that you're projecting. So let's say that you're working in your home, and the floor that you're working on doesn't look all that good. No matter how hard you work on it, it never really looks good.
Yes.
And at the essence of your desire for a new hardwood floor is you want it to look good, you want it to be pleasing to yourself, you want it to be pleasing to your family, you want it to be pleasing to your guests, you want to be progressive, you want to be moving forward, you want to be able to tend to your environment. In other words, there are a whole lot of vibrational essences that are all wrapped up in that. So the thought about I want a more beautiful hardwood floor is a rocket of desire that you launch from what you're living. Now, let's say that you've launched that rocket of desire, and now you're thinking another thought, maybe in response to that, but it's still another thought. In other words, the hardwood floor gave you a feeling of exhilaration.
Yes.
But now you're thinking another thought, which is, I don't have the right to want a new hardwood floor. In other words, the warning bell goes off, because you went to a place that Source never goes. Source went with you on the hardwood floors. Source knows that you should be able to evolve in whatever way you want to, but when you challenged your right to choose a new hardwood floor and pronounced yourself unworthy of making that decision, you're going the wrong way with that flow.
Right.
And then you felt it, and you stayed and tried to defend it by saying, oh, well, it's just my ego that wants a new hardwood floor. That's the no buzzer, can you tell?
Yeah.
In other words, that's the buzzer of resistance. In other words, the reason that feels uncomfortable is because that thought is not agreed upon by Source. So you were talking about all this contradicted stuff that's going on, and you've given us a perfect example for us to help you sort it out. You are thinking a thought and having a vibrational feeling response to the thought that you're thinking. And many of them feel good and some of them don't. And it's your job to sort out which of them are going this way and which of them are going this way. So you think that Source is really telling you shouldn't have a hardwood floor? Or do you think Source is really telling you shouldn't have a hardwood floor?
Yes. Exactly.
We think it's the second one.
Exactly. Yes.
Yes, let's go a little further. Now, ego, a word, ego. Does ego feel this way or this way? Oh, well, it could be anything, depending on how you've decided. But from our point of view, you are non-physical energy that has come forth into this personality, and that personality is what we like to call your ego. It's the you that is defining and sifting through the data of this. It's the personality of you that's deciding what you want from this perspective. And so it is a blessed, glorious word that means the continuation of that which you are. We want you to be egotistically selfish. You cannot help but see through the eyes of self. You are a self, you are a being that has a point of attraction that is coming to you, and the way you feel about the you that it is coming to is everything. So when you find a way to twist the personality and the perspective that is you and condemn it in some way and call it unworthy in some way and call it not enough and call it selfish in a negative terminology, the reason that that feels so awful is because you're out here hanging on the raw and ragged edge, because your source will never go with you to a thought like that, ever.
Okay.
Sometimes you will have experiences, Esther has had 2 or 3 of them recently, where she will focus upon something in her now experience which makes her feel bad. And she knows she's doing it, which compounds it, because she knows she should know better. Mm-hmm. And then she doesn't get that from us. She gets that from her comparison with other humans. In other words, They get letters from people, 2 different kinds of letters on the same subject, as we are all the time explaining what we teach through the examples of Jerry and Esther. So one letter says, "Oh, Jerry and Esther, thank you for your humanness. It makes us able to apply our own life to these principles." And the other letter says, "If you can't figure it out, what chance do we have?" So sometimes Esther gets hard on herself when she knows she's in that place that she does not want to be. And then often she will look to Jerry. Now she's there, she doesn't feel good. And if he would just come there with her, she is sure she would feel better. Or if he would just acknowledge that it's okay for her to be there, that would make her feel better. Or just promise her that she won't always be there and that he loves her even though she is there. And just something. Just give me something. But Jerry has become so inner being-like that when Esther's in that place where she doesn't want to be, he won't give her anything. He evaporates from her experience. So the madder she gets, the more absent he is, and the more absent he is, the madder she gets. So we say, oh, it's very normal for someone to get in that place of not feeling good and to literally train other people. In other words, Esther could, with enough intensity, train Jerry into coming there. Right. In other words, the comedians say, if my wife isn't happy, I'm not happy.
Like misery loves company.
Like she will make me miserable until I come and agree she's right, sort of thing. There's a lot of that is going around. So Esther could, with enough intensity, she might be able to coerce Jerry, to goad Jerry, to drag Jerry into her vibrational net. And it might give her a temporary feeling of relief. It might. But she will never get us to come there.
Right. No.
We want you to be like Jerry, or to be more inner being like. The reason that negative emotion exists at all is because Source insists on continuing to hold the vision of you that is the broader vision. It never gets swept up in the smaller current. Source is always swept up in the greater current. And the greater current is the stream of well-being that existed before you were born. It is all the positive intentions that you held about being born. It is all the momentum that this life experience has achieved for you. It's all the rockets of desire that you have launched. In other words, there's a huge momentum that is moving that Source is utterly at one with, and that is what you're wanting to get your ego to line up with. They aren't competitive foes. When you take the perspective that is you and get it in sync with the perspective that is Source, the influence of your being, the ecstasy of your moment, that's what you're shooting for.
I've been listening to Abraham for a number of years, and there's one subject that seems never to come up at these conferences.
Oh, we're out of time.
It's been touched on maybe just very briefly sometimes, but it's really one of the hot buttons for we humans. And so I'd like to talk about sex.
We are out of time, aren't we?
It seems obvious to me that sex is one of the ways that as humans, we experience pure positive energy. And
Alignment with who you are combined with sex is ecstasy.
okay.
But alignment with who you are plus anything is ecstasy. So
it's-
why are we talking about sex?
I like sex, so I want to talk about it. So my
We
first
thought
question,
you were going to say chocolate.
my first question is, have human beings always enjoyed sex for the pleasure of it?
Yes.
Or did it come into being because we asked for it? Were we always hardwired from the beginning
Yes.
to enjoy
In
it?
the same way that these things that are about the evolution of your species, like thirst, hunger, sex, all of those things, were close to where they are now right from the beginning.
So Lucy, 3 million years ago, had the ability to enjoy sex, and not just for procreation.
The ability to enjoy anything had to do with alignment. And it's interesting as we feel the depth and breadth of this wonderful question about Lucy back there all that long time ago. There is this incorrect assumption that back then that this vibrational relationship didn't exist, and it always existed. And in fact, in the more primal form, there were more orgasms than now. Because
That's
Lucy
interesting.
had a lot less to worry about then than she does now.
Okay.
If you want to understand that, watch your beasts and notice that in their not being so hung up on the rights and wrongs of all of that, that it is a much more free-flowing experience for them.
We have so many rules about sex in our society.
That's the point we just
Yeah,
made.
which partners are appropriate, what types of activity are appropriate, that one must be monogamous in marriage.
And none of that makes any difference in a real sense except to the individual whose vibrational relationship is affected. In other words, if you want something and you believe it's wrong, then you've got cross-current going on and you have to do something about getting into alignment before there can be the resulting experience that you want.
Well, we're anxious about sex. We're ashamed of our bodies, many of us. Where does all the negativity around sex come from? And certainly religions have a role to play in that.
It comes on this subject the same place it comes from so many other subjects. So many people are comparing manifestational results one to another rather than dealing with their own vibrational relationship. In other words, anytime you are looking beyond what you want and where you are in relationship to it to try to guide yourself, anytime you're looking to what that person thinks or that person thinks, you're bombarded with all of their different perspectives and you lose your ability to quantify your own journey. In other words, when we see Jerry and Esther moving from city to city, that journey is quantifiable, so they're never confused about which way to go. But when we see you moving from sickness to wellness, or from a bad relationship to a good relationship, or from not enough money to enough money, often you haven't figured out how to quantify your journey because that one says, oh, that way of earning money is right. Oh, that way of earning money is wrong. Oh, you should be doing it differently. And as you're listening all over the place, you try this, 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 you try this. So it's Phoenix, Yuma, Phoenix, Yuma, Phoenix, Yuma, Phoenix, Yuma, Phoenix, Yuma. And then you conclude, I can't get there from here. You conclude it's incurable or it's not possible. And we say, there is nothing that is not possible. You just have to point toward it and keep going. And the only way you can know which is the right direction to go for you is by letting the broader part of you that is already there call you and train yourself to be able to hear what that call sounds like. What that call sounds like is relief. So, for example, let's take this specific subject. So, the teenagers are just coming into their awareness of sexuality, sensuality, sexuality, and they are alive in their bodies and they are loving it. Regardless of what they do about it, that feeling of that budding sexuality is delicious to Lucy and Fred. In other words, whoever it is, they're feeling it. And if they go with the flow of that, in other words, they know where they want to go. In other words, the impulse source is calling them toward that. And when they move toward that, they feel joyous, maybe even orgasmic, maybe even ecstasy. And when they move away from it, they feel tension. So pretty clear cut. You want to have sex or not?